they say airports are where the truest goodbyes happen. I used to think that meant teary farewells and heartfelt hugs. But not this time. This time, I didn't even leave the airport. The flight from Johannesburg to Los Angeles had been long, draining, but it was the dread in my chest that weighed the most. 2 months away on assignment oilfield logistics, a job I was good at, only to come home to a silence that felt louder than jet engines. I knew something was wrong before I landed. It's funny how distance sharpens your instincts. Her name was Celia. We met 3 years ago in Denver, at a barbecue my buddy hosted. She laughed with her whole body and drank whiskey straight. I liked that about her. When she said she didn't mind my fly-in, fly-out schedule, I believed her. We married last July. And by September, she was sleeping with someone else. I found out by accident, which somehow made it worse. Her iPad had synced with the house computer. I wasn't even snooping, I was ordering groceries. The messages were there like open wounds. Can't wait till he's gone again. Last night was incredible. That night, I checked into the airport hotel instead of going home. I left the next morning for Hanoi, Vietnam, a place I had visited once and remembered fondly for its quiet mornings and motorbike chaos. It felt like the farthest point I could reach without falling off the map. I rented a small villa near the lake and sat with the ache in my chest, letting the stillness swallow me. I blocked her on everything. Then I called a lawyer. Everyone who tried to reach me got the same short answer: we're divorcing. She cheated. I won't be home for a while. But the problem wasn't just the heartbreak. The problem was the lease. We had never mixed finances. Celia's name was on the lease, the utilities, the Wi-Fi. I would transfer her money to cover the house while I was gone, and she'd handle the bills. It worked. She kept the apartment, I kept the freedom of a duffel bag and one formal outfit I rotated between weddings and funerals. But without my money, she couldn't afford that life. Her job as an event planner paid well, but she lived like her salary was double what it was. She liked nice wine, designer handbags, and weekend getaways. And I didn't mind. I liked giving her those things. Until she gave herself to someone else. I told myself I was done. That what she did was unforgivable. But that didn't stop the voices of mutual friends who said, "You blindsided her." She thought she had more time to explain. "She's struggling now." I didn't reply. I let them sit in their discomfort. But late at night, when Hanoi was quiet and the air smelled like jasmine and motor oil, I wondered if disappearing was the easy way out. Not because I doubted her betrayal. But because somewhere inside, I was still bleeding from a wound that wore her name. And yet, I felt the first tingle of power. She broke us. I simply walked away. The mornings in Hanoi carried a different kind of silence. Not the silence of a half-empty home, but of mopeds skimming the lakeside, of elderly couples doing Tai Chi in sync, of coffee being poured strong and bitter into glasses the size of thimbles. I watched from the terrace of my rented villa, letting the sun warm my skin while the shadows inside me curled tight. I had never been good at sitting still, but here, the stillness seemed to be the only honest thing left. I tried journaling, at first. It felt childish. Then again, so did the ache of betrayal. I scribbled half a page about anger, then another about the weather, before I wrote a single line that stopped me cold. What if she was never the home I thought she was? That night, I wandered down to a bar tucked behind an alley, lit with old Christmas lights and smelling faintly of durian and smoke. I sat alone, nursing something called a 5-spice mojito and trying not to laugh at the irony. Even my drinks were confused about what they wanted to be. An older man took the stool beside me. He looked like a retired sailor, weathered, with eyes that knew too much. We got to talking. His name was Walter, from Kentucky, divorced 3 times and proud of it. "You look like a man who just had his guts kicked in," he said. "More like sliced open with a cake knife. Slow and deliberate." He laughed so hard he slapped the counter. "Hell, son, that's poetic. Mind if I steal it for my memoir?" We talked until the place closed. Walter had been living in Vietnam for years, chasing something he never quite named. But he said one thing that stuck with me: you don't really know who someone is until the money dries up or the mask slips. Sometimes both. Back at the villa, I lay in bed thinking of Celia. Her laugh. The way she used to press her nose against mine in the mornings like some kind of kid. And then I remembered that message again, can't wait till he's gone again. Grief is funny. It doesn't leave all at once. It packs slowly, one drawer at a time, folding memories into neat regrets. The next day, I opened an old email thread with her, from before we were married. She'd sent me a photo of our first weekend trip. We were at the Grand Canyon. In the picture, I'm squinting at the sun, and she's looking at me, not the camera. She used to look at me like I was the last safe place in the world. I stared at that photo for a long time before deleting the thread. Some safeties aren't meant to last. And some stories don't need an epilogue. I didn't think about the lease until I checked my bank app one night and saw the automatic payment hadn't gone through. That's when it hit me. I had stopped the transfer after filing the divorce papers. She was on her own now. The next morning, a message slipped through from an unknown number. I need to talk. It's about the apartment. I ignored it. 3 days later, my sister called. Did you really just leave Celia to drown? She said, half in disbelief, half in judgment. I told her the truth. She had her choices. This is mine. But even truth doesn't shield you from guilt. That night, I remembered the morning we moved in. Celia had danced barefoot on the hardwood floor, holding a paint roller like a microphone. It smells like possibilities, she'd said. Now, it probably smelled like overdue bills. I walked the streets of Hanoi aimlessly, passing street vendors and night markets, dodging mopeds like raindrops. I bought a paper lantern from a young girl with pigtails who couldn't have been older than 10. She smiled when I handed her extra dong. For you, she said in perfect English. I carried that lantern home and lit it, watching its red glow flicker like a heartbeat. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I needed to do something that wasn't erasing someone or defending myself. Later that night, I found an old voice message I hadn't deleted yet. It was from Celia, sent on our first anniversary. I don't care where you go, as long as you come back to me. Always. Funny how time makes promises sound like punchlines. I saved that message. Not because I wanted to remember her. But because I wanted to remember who I was when I believed it. I wasn't expecting a visitor. Especially not a young man in a rumpled Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops, dragging a battered suitcase up the gravel path to my villa like he was showing up for spring break. He knocked exactly 3 times, grinning like we were old friends. Uncle Mark. I blinked. Liam? My nephew. Celia's side. Technically, he wasn't blood. He was Celia's sister's kid, which made him a satellite in the odd little solar system of our marriage. But I remembered him from the wedding, quiet, polite, always hiding behind headphones. He must have been 15 back then. Now he looked 20 going on 25 with that kind of reckless optimism that hadn't yet been tempered by life's sharp corners. He stepped past me before I could object, plopping down on the bamboo couch and fanning himself with a street map. My mom said you were in Vietnam and needed company. Said you might be lonely. Lonely. The word landed like a joke without a punchline. He started unpacking snacks, socks, a travel chessboard. I stood there, dumbfounded, while he gave me a play-by-play of his journey, complete with a 3-hour layover in Taipei and a woman on the plane who offered him fermented fish candy. I took 2. Regretted it. I finally found my voice. Liam, you can't just show up unannounced. He shrugged. I brought Pringles. Sour cream and onion. I sat down heavily, unsure if I was annoyed, touched, or both. Maybe I was just tired. I hadn't had a conversation in days that wasn't with a barista or Walter. He wandered into the kitchen, examining spices like a curious archaeologist. You live like a monk, he said, wrinkling his nose at my single pot and shelf of instant noodles. I live like a man who isn't expecting drop-ins. He grinned. Well, I'm here now. Got nowhere to be till next semester. I should have told him to leave. Sent him packing back to wherever he'd dropped in from. But something about his presence, chaotic, earnest, young, stirred something in the dust of my chest. That night, we sat outside, feet propped on a shared stool, lanterns glowing, the sounds of Hanoi humming like a lullaby. He asked me about Celia. I didn't dodge it. She cheated. I left. That's the short version. Liam nodded, popping a Pringle into his mouth. She always had a way of pretending she was a victim in stories she wrote. I looked at him sideways. How old are you really? Old enough to know when someone talks about themselves like they're the main character and the narrator. I laughed. It surprised me how much I needed that laugh. Deep, real, and lined with the absurdity of the moment. My ex-wife's teenage nephew, sitting on my porch in Hanoi, handing out potato chips and life advice like a pint-sized oracle. Maybe I didn't need solitude to heal. Maybe I needed a wild card. You know that feeling when you open your inbox and immediately regret having opposable thumbs? Yeah. That was me on a humid Tuesday morning in Hanoi. I had just settled into my usual spot on the terrace, iced coffee in hand, mosquito coil burning like incense from a bitter life, when I checked my email for the first time in days. It was meant to be a glance. A check-in. Nothing serious. And then I saw it. Subject line, let's talk. From Celia. Now, if I were a smarter man, the kind who doesn't eat expired canned tuna because it smelled fine or wear socks with holes because they still technically qualify as socks, I would have deleted it. But I opened it. Of course I did. It was short. Too short. I need closure. Please. One conversation. I deserve that. Deserve. There was that word again. Like love had a ledger and betrayal only needed a few well-placed pleas to settle the account. Liam peered over my shoulder. Is that her? I nodded. She wants closure? After what she did? Pfft, tell her to find it in a yoga retreat. But I didn't delete it. I didn't reply either. I stared at it for so long my coffee turned lukewarm and the mosquito coil burned itself out. That evening, I told Liam I needed some air. He decided to follow me. Because apparently, solitude is a group activity now. We ended up at a noisy food stall where an old man tried to sell us grilled frog and beer in mismatched mugs. I bought both. Because that's who I was now, a man who didn't know what he wanted but knew he deserved at least questionable beer. Liam asked, why haven't you blocked her? I shrugged. Maybe part of me wants to hear her explain. Or maybe I just like torturing myself. It's one of my less charming hobbies. Right up there with self-pity and overthinking middle-of-the-night voicemails. He raised an eyebrow. Do you want to talk to her? No. Maybe. I don't know. I want to not talk to her. That sentence gave me a headache. We bickered. Like an old married couple and their emotionally constipated dog. He told me I was being a coward. I told him he should try being married to a woman who weaponized silence like it was a martial art. He accused me of running away. I reminded him I was literally on the other side of the planet. By the time we walked home, we were silent. The kind of silence that says, we both said things. We regret some. We meant the rest. Later that night, I sat in the dark and finally admitted something I hadn't said aloud. I missed the version of Celia I married. The woman who danced in our living room. Who made pancakes that always burned on one side but insisted it added character. I missed her. And I hated that I missed her. I didn't reply to the email. But I didn't delete it either. It was supposed to be a quiet night. A bowl of lukewarm pho, a rerun of some bootleg detective series Liam had gotten me hooked on, and the comforting creak of a bamboo fan turning lazily above my head. And then I made the call. You called her? Liam practically leapt off the couch, nearly spilling his bowl of noodles. Don't start. I leave you alone for 2 episodes of Dead Men Don't Surf, and you go full ex-husband hotline? It was just a voicemail, I muttered, instantly regretting both the message and the second helping of chili oil. But the next morning, my phone rang. And like every character in every bad noir film I'd ever seen, I answered it. Mark. That voice. Like an old song you forget you loved until it starts playing in a grocery store at 2 a.m. Celia. There was a pause. Heavy. Like the universe was holding its breath. You sound. Don't say tired. She chuckled. I was going to say haunted. I smirked. Same thing. Another silence. She finally said, I just needed to hear your voice. You heard it. Do you hate me? That stopped me. I thought about the photo of us at the Grand Canyon. About the night I left. About the grilled frog and mismatched beer mugs. No, I said slowly. But I don't trust you anymore. And that might be worse. Celia let out a sigh. I didn't expect to be forgiven. I lost something. And I think I wanted to hear from the last person who made me feel like I had everything. You lost me the second you texted another man while I was wiring you bill money from Angola. She didn't deny it. Just whispered, fair. Liam walked in, took one look at me, and mouthed, is that her? I nodded. He mouthed, tell her she owes me an AirPod. I rolled my eyes. Celia asked, are you with someone? My nephew. Oh. Well. That's less threatening. There was an odd kind of warmth in her voice, which made me uncomfortable. Like someone handing you a gift-wrapped grenade. You sound good, she said softly. You sound like someone trying not to ask for money. She really laughed, and for a moment, it didn't hurt. It just echoed like an old inside joke in a room full of strangers. I don't want anything from you, Mark. I just needed to know you were okay. I paused. Then, because life is short and I'm still a sucker for unnecessary closure, I said, I am. Sort of. We hung up. And it didn't feel like the end of something. Just a dot. Maybe a semicolon. That night, Liam and I got drunk on rice wine and tried to make spring rolls without instructions. We argued about the correct way to fold the wrapper, which led to a flower fight, which led to a bruised knee and one ruined shirt. You suck at emotions, Liam said, dabbing soy sauce from his temple. I have a doctorate in emotional constipation. No kidding. And then he grinned. You called her. That means you're healing. Or unraveling. But hey, same process. I laughed. The real kind. The kind that makes your ribs hurt. And in that laughter, I knew something, whatever came next, I wasn't alone anymore. The letter came in a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering on the front, like someone had mistaken it for a wedding invitation. It sat in the mailbox out front for 3 days before Liam brought it inside, mostly because it was starting to curl in the heat. It smells like regret, he said, tossing it onto the table between a bowl of half-eaten noodles and an unopened can of lychee soda. The return address read, Oakcrest Memorial Hospital. I opened it slowly. Not because I was nervous. Because the weight in my chest told me whatever was inside wasn't just paperwork. I read it once. Then twice. The third time, I sat down. Celia had been in a car accident. Minor, technically. A few bruised ribs, a fractured wrist. But she had gone in for x-rays, and they found something. A mass. Unexpected. Fast-growing. Malignant. The letter wasn't from her. It was from her sister. Her annoying sister, who once gave me an air fryer for Christmas and then asked for it back in April. She said she didn't want you to find out from anyone else. Said she wasn't ready to talk to you herself. The rest of the page was full of updates I couldn't seem to absorb. Chemotherapy. Surgery. Isolation. She was staying with their mother. She wanted me to know, but not to worry. What does that even mean? I muttered. If you didn't want me to worry, don't mail me a death sentence on stationery that looks like it came from a spa. Liam sat beside me, unusually quiet. He took the letter, read it, and let out a long breath. What are you going to do? I have no idea. But I did. Sort of. That night, I dreamed of her. Not the version from the end. The version who used to dance in our living room, hair wild, arms outstretched, barefoot on cold tiles. In the morning, I booked a flight. You going back to California? Liam asked. Just for a few days. I need to see her. Not for her. For me. He nodded, handed me a pack of ginger chews, and said, tell her she still owes me that AirPod. The flight home was surreal. 12 hours of reflection, 3 hours of turbulence, and a man next to me who snored like an engine from a broken washing machine. When I landed, I didn't call anyone. I just took a cab straight to the address on the letter. Her mother's house. The one with the flamingo lawn ornaments and the ceramic frog on the porch. She answered the door herself. Pale. Smaller somehow. But her eyes were still Celia's eyes. Mark. Hey. She stepped aside, and I walked in. Everything smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet apologies. We didn't say much. She offered tea. I declined. We sat in the living room, the air between us thick with everything we weren't sure we were allowed to feel. And then, in the middle of that silence, she laughed. Remember when we tried to build that IKEA bookshelf and ended up breaking 2 wine glasses and a lamp? I smiled. Yeah. You said the instructions were written by someone on mushrooms. I stand by that. There it was again. That echo of a life that had once felt real. We didn't cry. Not then. But when I left an hour later, we hugged. Not the polite kind. The kind where 2 people are holding each other up. In the cab back to my hotel, I stared out the window and realized, closure isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's just the pause before something begins again. What that beginning was? I didn't know. But something had changed. Not just in her. In me. And the next morning, I found a voicemail from Liam. Hey, you might want to come back soon. Something big happened. And I swear, it wasn't my fault. Probably. Hook set. By the time I landed back in Hanoi, I was emotionally wrung out, caffeinated beyond salvation, and slightly paranoid about the something big Liam had hinted at in his voicemail. That phrase could mean anything from I spilled fish sauce on your tax documents to I adopted a mongoose. The taxi smelled like star anise and old cigarettes. I tipped the driver too much because he played Nina Simone during the ride. It felt cinematic. Tragic. Maybe a little sexy. Then I saw the villa. It wasn't on fire. Technically. But there was a group of people gathered out front. A very upset old woman was pointing at Liam, who was holding a broom like a knight facing a dragon made of angry neighbors. Mark, he shouted when he spotted me. Okay, I can explain it sort of. Liam, I said, setting my bag down slowly, why does the air smell like singed tofu and regret? So, he said, backing up as the old woman hissed something that sounded legally actionable, I may have offered to help her grandson light lanterns for his birthday. And we used motorbike fuel. I blinked. Motorbike what? He winced. It was cheaper. And I didn't know it was, explosive. The neighbors began yelling again. Liam raised both hands like he was surrendering in a Tarantino standoff. Okay. I'll pay for the chicken coop roof. I stepped forward. No. We will not be paying for anything until I've had a bath and possibly a lobotomy. Later, when the crowd dispersed and the broom had been returned to the agitated widow next door, we sat on the terrace in silence. Liam cleared his throat. I may have also, joined a local dragon boat team. I gave him a sideways glance. Do you own a paddle? Not yet. But I bring snacks. There was a beat of silence. Then I laughed. Full-throated, belly deep. I hadn't laughed like that in weeks. Maybe longer. He handed me a warm beer and we toasted. To disaster, he said. To idiots who mean well. We clinked cans. Hey, Liam said, more serious now, how was it? Seeing her. I stared into the darkness, watching the flicker of lanterns still floating on the lake. Like finding an old photograph you forgot you loved. And realizing you were smiling in it. He nodded slowly. You think you'll go back again? Maybe. When I know why. We sat like that for a long while, the air cooling around us. A breeze drifted through the trees, rustling the leftover apology notes Liam had scrawled for the neighbors in his terrible Vietnamese. Then my phone buzzed. One new message. From Celia. It said, there's something else I didn't tell you. Call me when you're ready. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit. Let the moment stretch like a bowstring. Because I knew something now. The story wasn't finished. There's a quote I once read, scrawled on the back of a bathroom stall in a gas station between Tucson and nowhere: we all die with secrets. The trick is dying with the right ones. I didn't think much of it at the time. But now it felt like prophecy. I called Celia the next morning. The air in Hanoi was thick with humidity and burned soy. Liam was still asleep, snoring under a mosquito net like a hungover jazz musician. I stepped out to the terrace, tapped her number, and waited. She answered on the first ring. "Hey," she said, quiet as if we were still in the same room, on opposite sides of a fight we never really finished. "What didn't you tell me?" There was a pause. Then a breath. "The kind you take before pulling out the bone." "I lied," she said. "Not just about the guy. About before. About why I said yes to marrying you." I sat down. Hard. I needed a sense of safety. "You were safe. Steady. You came and went, and when you were gone, I could be whoever I wanted. I thought I could grow into loving you the way you loved me. But I didn't. Not completely. And I hated myself for it." Silence. Just birds in the trees and the sound of someone chopping something nearby, maybe forgiveness. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know. I just needed you to know that it wasn't all a lie. Not the mornings. Not the dancing. That was real." "Yeah," I said, blinking fast. "That's the part that hurts." We sat with it. With what was left. I thought of another quote, this one from a book I barely remembered: "Love is rarely symmetrical. The best we can hope for is to be cherished in return." I wasn't cherished. I was convenient. I see that now. And it's strange how clarity doesn't arrive in a thunderclap but in soft admissions over a crackling connection from 8,000 miles away. "Is there someone else?" I asked. "No," she said. "There's just me now." "Good. Then try to love her. Because for a long time, you didn't." That landed. She didn't reply. We said goodbye like people who had already done it before. I sat there long after the call ended. Let the stillness settle. Then I looked at my own hands. Wrinkled, suntanned, a little shaky. Hands that had built and held and let go. I'd made mistakes too. I had chosen work over presence. I had chased freedom and called it balance. I had ignored small signs because I believed the bigger picture was enough. Maybe I loved her more for the idea of partnership than the actual daily intimacy. Maybe I used travel as a shield. Maybe I didn't want to be the guy who needed someone. But I was. And now I needed me. Liam stumbled out, rubbing his eyes. "You look like you just fought a ghost." I nodded. "I think I did." He sat next to me, opened 2 bottles of soda. "So what now?" "I write it down," I said. "The truth. All of it. The truth is overrated." "No," I said. "It's overdue." I wrote the letter in one sitting. No edits. No second drafts. Just me, a black pen, and a stack of rough-edged paper that smelled faintly like rain. I didn't write it for Celia. Or for Liam. Or for the friends who had quietly picked sides and disappeared when the dust settled. I wrote it for the man I used to be, the one who kept disappearing in order to feel needed when he returned. I started with the truth. I wasn't always present. I wasn't always kind. But I loved the best way I knew how, with what was left of me after the world had taken its bites. I wrote about the wedding. About the moment I realized she looked at me like a safety net, not a sanctuary. I wrote about Vietnam, about the silence, about the first time I laughed again because of a boy who thought life could be healed with Pringles and bad decisions. And I ended with this. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away, not out of anger, but out of understanding. Not all love is meant to last, but all love can teach us. If you're reading this, I hope you forgive yourself for staying too long, or for leaving too soon. I hope you choose to keep your heart open, even when it breaks. Especially then. I folded it. Sealed it. Left it on the nightstand next to Liam's half-eaten mango and his dog-eared copy of a book he swore he was going to finish. He walked in just as I was about to leave for the airport. "You going?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah. Not back to her. Just forward." He hugged me. Fierce and fast. "Come back when you know where you're going." I smiled. "Or when I run out of snacks." At the airport, I watched people hug, cry, text, bored. Every goodbye felt temporary. Every departure felt like a decision. Mine wasn't an ending. it was a continuation. And if you're still with me, still reading this, I want you to know something. We all make mistakes. We stay when we should go. We speak when silence would hold more grace. We break things we don't know how to fix. But we can learn. Learn to be gentler. With ourselves. With others. Learn to ask better questions. Learn to listen without waiting to respond. Learn to love without asking to be saved. If you're hurting, heal. If you're lost, rest. And if you're stuck, forgive yourself before you ask it from anyone else. Because this life, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. And every scar, every story, every silent goodbye shapes the person you're still becoming. So here's to becoming. And here's to you. The end.